Thank you, Nadia. It was beautiful. Thank you very much. I also want to thank and congratulate my fellow honorees to Moira. Outstanding, and your words, and Marshall, so inspiring. Really, I loved hearing all about early childhood education and college education, and maybe I could talk a little bit about continuing adult education after that. I also want to thank everyone from the ORT organization, from Robbie and Keith, who co-chaired tonight's event, and the staff, Jenna and Judy and Barney. Really just a wonderful job in putting together tonight's program. And certainly want to thank all of our guests who are here this evening, and certainly want to acknowledge and thank my beautiful wife, Doreen, for being here with us tonight. My friends from AA, my friends from the JCC, my friends from the Weber School, the Epstein School, and the rest of the Jewish community. It's really an honor to be with all of you here tonight. And I want to also thank the Braves for not playing the World Series tonight.
Oh, boo.
Since the theme for tonight's celebration is about inspiration, I'd like to talk about a teacher who especially inspired me and whose approach I use in my own teaching. Her name was Nechama Leibovitz, and she was perhaps the greatest Bible teacher of the 20th century. Nechama, and that's how she was known by her first name to all of her thousands of students, became famous in Israel for developing the forerunner of the MOOC. Back then, it could have been called a MOOC, a massively open correspondence course. Beginning in the 1940s, Nechama created teacher self-study sheets, known in Hebrew as Yilionot, for each parsha. Her questions were based on the text and a selection of the great commentators from Jewish as well as non-Jewish tradition. Her questions always started with the surface meaning, or the pshat, but then she would lead her students down to the next level of meaning and lower, and to each layer underneath. She was never satisfied with the first few interpretations until she felt that she had drilled down to a deeply satisfying understanding of what the text had to teach us. The Gileonot in the 1950s and 60s and 70s were reproduced by mimeograph and then mailed to students all over Israel and the diaspora all over the world. And then students would write their answers back on the mimeo sheet and then mail it back to her. And she would personally grade and respond to each student's answers, writing Tov, Tov, Lo Tov. And then she would mail the corrected sheet back to the student. In 1971, when Nechama officially retired from teaching, or teaching for distance learning in any event, because she continued to teach in person, she wrote the following in her public letter of farewell. Many thanks to all of my students in Israel and overseas whose questions and replies, perseverance and love of Torah have been a source of strength and pleasure for me. In the full sense of the phrase, I have learned more from my students than from anyone else. I'm especially grateful to those who answered my questions and responded with questions of their own. There were members of Kibbutzim who corresponded with me regularly over the years, patiently and affectionately accepting my corrections and reprimands in red ink. The young and not so young mothers who found time to study after they had put the children to sleep. The soldiers who wrote to me under conditions defying description during a lull in battle. I'm enthralled by this vast array of students, all studying Torah for its own sake. For our joint studies involved no certificates, no grades, no prizes, only the great joy of the one who studies Torah. Well, in 1980, I spent a year studying at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and I had the opportunity to study with Nechama, a class on the Joseph story in the book of Genesis. The class was in Ivrit Kala, easy Hebrew, or so she said. Nechama would come into class every day with her trademark brown beret pulled down over her head. She was very short, so we didn't even notice that she had come into the room until she got up on the stage to teach. I sat in the third row, teacher's pet. she would ask us a question. She'd wait 2 or 3 seconds, and then when no one had an answer, she would say, "Mike, what's with you?" One day, after class, I went to the library to work on one of the Giuliano. And after about 10 minutes, much to my surprise, Nakama also arrived in the library and sat down at the table next to mine. She acknowledged me, and then, almost in a secretive way, she opened up her briefcase and took out a sheaf of papers, the celebrated Giuliano that she was still answering 50, 60 years after she had started the process. I watched her as she went through each one, writing with her famous red pen those immortal words, Tov, Tov, Lo Tov. Sometimes she would also scribble a further question to the students. But most of the time, they just had to figure out for themselves why their answers were wrong, and then try again. Well, I've never forgotten the ways that Nakama took every student's question, every student's answer, so seriously and thoughtfully. And though my students today sit comfortably in well-furnished classrooms and not in the heat of battle, and though I don't wear a little brown beret to class, her inspiration moved me to help all of my students, whether they're in the Melton program at the JCC, or interfaith programs, or classes at AA, or classes in conversion, or Musser classes, all of my varied students who have been so involved and so invested in their own personal learning. Because what I want to say to all of you tonight is, it's never too late. What we say in Jewish tradition is Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. Study of Torah is above all of the other mitzvot, and it's a lifelong process, and it's there for us to continue every day of our life. In this way, I hope to help my students become more aware and appreciative of their Jewish heritage and their Jewish identity, and that's what inspires me today.